President Trump this afternoon defending his order to send National Guard troops to the southern border, insisting there will still be a wall and even that the military will help build the wall. President Trump returning to the same type of rhetoric that he used when he launched his presidential campaign in June 2015, using terms that immigrant communities might find offensive, such as anchor babies or chain migration, saying that women coming to the U.S. are being raped, quote, at levels nobody has ever seen before, unquote. CNN's Jeff Zeleny is at the White House. And Jeff, I thought that this trip to West Virginia was about President Trump promoting tax cuts and tax reform.
Jake, that's what Republican leaders thought as well. That is exactly why he went to West Virginia, the home of one of the most competitive Senate races. And it got off to a start about the tax plan, what Republicans hoped the president would talk about for the next several months. Instead, he reverted to one of the old standbys of his campaign, immigration, and bluntly, the word rape. Mr. President, tell us about the border plan. President Trump traveling to West Virginia today to sell his tax plan.
So now, once again, you see that America is open for business. One of the big things is our tax cuts.
But within moments, he moved on from the biggest legislative achievement of his presidency to his biggest obsession, illegal immigration.
Remember my opening remarks at Trump Tower when I opened? Everybody said, oh, he was so tough. And I used the word rape. And yesterday it came out where this journey coming up, women are raped at levels that nobody's ever seen before. They don't want to mention that. So we have to change our laws. And the Democrats, what they're doing is just, it's insanity. Nobody understands what's going on.
With a baby in a hand. The president, who used the word rape when first announcing his bid for the Oval Office, also going back today to old and unproven claims about voter fraud.
In many places, like California, the same person votes many times. You probably heard about that. They always like to say, oh, that's a conspiracy theory. Not a conspiracy theory, folks. Millions and millions of people.
Election officials, Republicans and Democrats alike, have dismissed this as a hoax. Consumed by the president's fury over illegal immigration, the White House is now scrambling to implement his plan to send National Guard troops to the U.S.-Mexico border.
We're going to have our wall, and we're going to get it very strongly. The military is going to be building some of it, but we're going to have very strong borders, and we have to change our laws, and we're working on doing that.
But a question remains unanswered. Why now, when even the president acknowledges arrests at the border are down? Because of the Trump administration's actions, border crossings are still at an unacceptable 46-year low, the president writing on Twitter. That figure from the president is true. There are fewer arrests for illegal border crossings than at any point since 1971, according to the Department of Homeland Security. Arrests are 25% lower than in 2016. Republican governors largely voiced support for the plan, while Democrats like Congressman Ruben Gallego blasted it as blatantly political.
It's using our National Guard troops who are greatly trained. You're going to pull them out of their private lives to essentially go and try to solve a political problem. This is a failing presidency.
So even with so many questions here about that plan to send National Guard troops to the border, one thing is clear, Jake. The president clearly making the decision to double down on illegal immigration as a theme of this midterm election campaign. He wants to get conservatives, his base, back in his corner. Of course, this all comes after conservative backlash saying he was not doing enough on immigration. The question here is how this resonates with some of the voters Republicans are trying to hold on to, those suburban voters out there in the country who could hold the key to the House and the Senate remaining in Republican control. Jake?
All right, Jeff Zeleny at the White House, thanks so much. And we're going to dive more into the reality at the border in a moment, including a trip down there. But first, I want to bring back my political panel to talk about this. So, David, he's never going to stick to script, right? I mean, like, you have the tax cuts. You've been talking about the tax cuts. You're on message. You come here and you have your list. And
but I'm not the president. I don't have that luxury, right?
You don't have the luxury, but I mean, wouldn't it be better for him?
No. Listen, if the way he got elected was being exactly like this. He cut through an incredibly crowded Republican field, a political neophyte, by throwing the script in the air and doing exactly what he's doing. People voted for this. That's what they want. The same viewers that are looking at Roseanne are looking at him right now, and they love it.
You're eye rolling.
Oh, no, I wasn't that way. No, I think that's true. I think that is what he got elected for.
But don't you think, you think it's not wise necessarily?
I think his base likes it. I'm less concerned about him throwing away the script than I am with what he said when he threw away the script. Such as how he was talking about, the Mexican rapists. And I think it was such a misrepresentation of what is happening, sort of conflating these issues of remember when I said that all these Mexicans are rapists, and then people are getting raped on their way here, so therefore all Mexicans are rapists, when in fact what's happening is, it's true, a lot of women do get raped, girls get raped on their way to the United States, but it's because they're being brought up by these coyotes. And there needs to be a better process for people to get into the country. We don't want them being smuggled into the country. We don't want them making these horrible journeys, which they're doing because they're fleeing violence.
Right, the human trafficking, those individuals are the ones doing the rape. It's not the people in the caravan, for example, were mostly women and children.
And I would just say that the notion that somehow using the National Guard to help protect the border is somehow it's novel. I mean, President Bush did it in 2006.
Obama did it.
Yeah, Obama did it in 2012. Bush had 6,000 soldiers. This is all governed by the Posse Comitatus Act, which says troops can't be used to enforce the law. They can be used to help, protect the border, but they're not going to be arresting folks. They're going to be used to supplement the folks that are on the border there. It's clearly laid out. It's been done before. I don't think it's controversial at all.
A difference, though, that's completely true. It's been done before. But a difference, Josh, is that when Bush did it, when Obama did it, there was a process, interagency discussion, consultation with Congress, consultation with Mexico, as opposed to the president. This seems like a much more impulsive decision. The president seeing something on Fox and Friends, saying that he wants to do this, and then the Department of Homeland Security and others trying to make it a reality.
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't think that should be anybody should be taken by surprise that this president takes border security very seriously. So, I mean, I think the idea that there's anybody over at Homeland Security who's still questioning his commitment to the border, of course they...
Fair enough.
But I think bringing this back to the politics for a minute, I think what David said is absolutely true in that the base does react to all of this. They're not going to love constant talk of tax cuts. They're going to want to talk about some of the things that got President Trump elected in the first place, and I think that's what he's doing. There's an interesting, I guess, conversation to have about whether this is ultimately just a base election, because if it's a base election, then that stuff works well. If it's not, which we saw in Pennsylvania, and we saw in Alabama, and we saw in Virginia, suburban voters are running for the hills. And so there's got to be a melding of those two things for Republicans. They've got to use the energy the president brings with base voters, but they also have to talk about tax cuts. They really do.
And Kirsten, the president once again bringing out this canard that millions of people voted illegally. Obviously, there are fraudulent votes that happen in every election cycle, but there is no evidence, according to Republican and Democratic officials, that millions of people voted illegally.
Nope. There is not. I mean, I don't know how we. Well, I think okay.
Political hyperbole, shocking, right?
I mean, hyperbole. I mean, he's telling people that millions of people voted illegally.
I mean, today's a campaign event, right? I mean, that's what it is, and he's trying to rally the base. I do agree with you. The less he talks about the accomplishments, the less he talks about all the money. Like, he's in West Virginia. The West Virginia auditor did an audit in West Virginia, and $50 billion, some gigantic number is going to go into the West Virginia economy there. President should be talking about that and how that's going to be spread.
Yeah, but why are you saying it and he's not?
I'm just saying, I agree with you, Jake. I'm agreeing with you.
But that's my question.
No, I agree with you. Listen, the president should be touting his own success. He's doing great things.
Why can't he get them excited without making up things?
He's not making up his campaigning.
Millions of illegal votes is not true.
You're like, it's not true, but that's what they want to hear.
Anyway.